the American people stand firm in the faith which has inspired this nation from the beginning. We believe that all men have a right to equal justice under law and equal opportunity to share in the common good. We believe that all men have the right to freedom of thought and expression. We believe that all men are created equal because they are created in the image of God. From this faith, we will not be moved.
Hello and welcome to the Freedom of Thought podcast. I am your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Freedom of Thought is available on all of your favorite podcasting apps. I thank each and every one of you once and always for downloading and listening to the show. It is a great pleasure to be back on board with you once again today. As well, we're on another mobile episode. This is a mobile one out by the fire pit. Can't really record inside, and well, on a day like this, probably don't want to anyway. But yeah, the topic definitely today is definitely interesting, kind of controversial a bit, you could say. Lots of frustrations in this town. Though, of course, the same people just keep getting reelected. Eventually, I'm going to launch, you could call it a campaign, not to necessarily run for anything, but it'll be kind of like a series that we're going to be doing here on Freedom of Thought that'll kind of focus towards local politics. Hi, Keith. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, right. The cops there, wherever they are. We can do better in Minnesota. Yeah, because we can do better. So that's kind of going to be kind of a bit. This is sort of like, in a lot of ways, an introduction to it. Because, well, we can do better than Keith Ellison. Let's put it that way. The current Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. Even they talked about him on Garage Logic on Thursday and Friday this past week about all the fraud going on with, campaign donations and such, like illegal campaign donations, conflict of interest and such, like with his son and all that, like also receiving campaign donations illegally. It's incredible. So, yeah, I mean, was it Jim Schultz talking about that? A guy who basically lost in the smallest of margins to Keith Ellison very recently. So, hopefully, Jim Schultz can be victorious if he is to if he's to try to go for it again, try to go for the election and finally get Keith Ellison out of office. And I think that'd be a huge plus. I'm affected personally by, well, you could say me affected, but we basically all are. And let's just say somebody very close to me is affected by Keith Ellison with credit debt, a credit debt situation going on. Let's just say this person got into a decent amount of credit debt. Definitely could be worse. Other people have much worse credit debt than this person, but still in the tens of thousands range, which is not good. It's just kind of mishandling your finances a little bit, and then obviously it gets to a point where you just can't keep up with the interest, that type of situation. So you join one of those debt settlement type of companies. I won't say the name, obviously, because there's a bunch of them out there, but let's just call it like, I don't know. Okay, let's not call it anything. A debt settlement company where you want to, you want to basically try to kind of get everything together. It's basically like lawyers at the company that know how to talk to the creditors to get them to lower demands and kind of come with a settlement, because of the interest is insurmountable for people, especially in this day and age. You're working your butt off, you're trying to keep up, and the debt is, it's just, it's just like quicksand. Like, you think you're kind of catching up, and then the interest or something else sets you back financially, that type of thing. So that's kind of what's going on in the debt world. A lot of people are going through it, whether you're a successful person or not a successful person, or somewhere in the middle like the rest of us. So that type of thing. So this person went to this, got this thing going with this company a couple years ago, 2022, we'll say, very early in 2022, got things going, and you kind of have your hopes up. Obviously, one of them, we'll say, is a card that is associated with a very well-known bank. Another one is a card that's associated with basically, helping to pay for car repairs. That one was thrown in to, I guess, for some reason, make the finances easier, I guess, in order to kind of pay like a monthly payment to this debt settlement company to try to kind of get things back in order, to try to kind of gradually get things back in order, build up basically a pool of money. I'll, of course, pay the fees to the company at the same time, but also, build up a pool of money so you can get to settlements with these creditors. The car one wasn't needed on there necessarily, but it, for some reason, would lower the monthly cost, I guess. So, but that's kind of just a small portion of the story. That's not as important necessarily. But grand scheme of things, it's been a number of years paying this about $400 a month. Part of its fee, part of its building up the pool to pay off this much larger debt with a credit card that is associated with a major bank. The car one got paid off pretty quickly, and that was easy because it was a very small amount. But then you're kind of focusing, the settlement had never happened and all that yet, because you got to build up a certain amount of money before these lawyers or whatever can negotiate officially to an official settlement, and you can kind of get things wrapped up and move on with the rest of our lives, get your credit back in order again. This company also was very helpful in terms of not having these creditors call the individual that was in debt with them, indebted to them with the credit debt. So they're helpful, yes. Regardless of how you think of the way they collect their fees or anything, they were very helpful, and it was nice. Nice not to get harassed, nice not to get pushed, nice to have that pressure off you and you could just focus on paying things off. But unfortunately, it's one of those things that takes time. Regardless, you're paying everything on time, you're doing your part, and then all of a sudden it's like this individual received a check in the mail for almost $7,000. And it's like, what the heck is this nonsense? And then you find out that everything was stopped. And obviously the almost $7,000 was not nearly the total amount that this person had put into the company. So the amount of fees were still kind of withholding and such, but all the potential settlement was just kind of shut down and put on pause. And who was this thanks to? Thanks to the wonderful Keith Ellison and others like him in other states like New York and such, obviously very left-leaning states, left-leaning metropolitan areas, that they're shutting down all these certain debt settlement companies because they don't like the way that they're collecting their fees basically first. They're saying they're ripping us off. They're ripping people off and all that. They're ripping off the people, and we're fighting for you. But at the end of the day, is Keith Ellison really fighting for you? Or is he just screwing everything up, basically putting everything on hold so you don't get your credit back? You're just stuck. Poor you, Mr. Individual or Miss Individual who has credit debt. You're just stuck. That's all you get to do. And when I say us or me or this or that, because it could be anybody talking about this, could be anybody. It could be half of you listening to this episode that could be in this situation, because it could be anybody in debt trying to kind of get things settled and go back to our normal lives again. Because unfortunately, once you start something like this, your credit goes down as you're doing it a bit. But it's not like filing bankruptcy. It's just kind of like, hey, we got to try to come to a settlement here. You're not going to get the money immediately. We're building it up first to go for the settlement, which, my view, is perfectly fine as long as you get it done. As long as you get it done, get the job done, get it paid off. You do your part, and the debt settlers do their part. And then Keith Ellison butts in, and what happens? Keith Ellison butts in, and everything's just put on hold. Your credit's stuck. You're not really sure what to do. Let's just say about the other $6,000 or so approximately is just kind of sitting there on hold, and it's going to the courts, and God knows when that's gonna happen. You're gonna get the money back or whatever is gonna happen. How much you're gonna get back? You're gonna get it all back. You're gonna get extra back. You're gonna get half of it back. Oh, God only knows. And the likes of Keith Ellison butting in, and just as far as I'm concerned, just looking for trouble as far as I'm concerned, and it's too much. It's too much. That's what Keith Ellison does. Keith Ellison, in the names of the people, and just wants to butt in, put his nose into everything, just all in the names of his ego, thinking he's really something special. Maybe some of the quotes here. And of course, there's recent stuff going on. What is it called? Feed Our Families, and it was all. I mean, the amount of money and the amount of people didn't add up. So there's a lot of fraud going on there with Keith Ellison. But this particular thing can definitely hit home with a lot of people when it comes to debt. I'd rather, if it was me, Keith Ellison, not stick his nose in this and let the person finish things off, because it was very close. Now you're just stuck in a limbo, and you never know when you're going to come out of this nonsense because of people like Keith Ellison that want to butt in. They always got to butt in. So what was one of the things he's saying? Consumers came to this place for help getting out of debt, and instead of receiving that help, they were ripped off, said Attorney General Keith Ellison. Preying on people in debt is as reprehensible as it gets. Yeah, Keith, you could take a little bit of that medicine right here. I think you're preying on people in debt. I am glad to be partnering with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, bureaucracy, and other attorneys general or attorney generals to put a stop to this company's illegal. So this is multiple companies. Obviously, this is not the same one that I'm personally talking about with this other person, but it's a group. Like, they're all in a group. This company's illegal and unethical behavior and return money to the people they scammed. So at this point, were you really scamming people? Were they really scamming people, or were just asking for their fees? You know what I mean? I suppose you could look at it different ways, but they tell you what they're going to do before you sign the paper. And this person agrees that they told them everything. So why are we being stuck on hold for an extended period of time? Possibly, who knows, years, possibly just stuck with, mediocre to below average credit, where buying a house might not be an easy thing. Do you want to be just stuck in a dingy apartment the rest of your life because of people like Keith Ellison? I'm sure Keith Ellison wouldn't mind that, because that way it's people you can control, people you can, and they'll keep voting for you because he's fighting for me. He's fighting for me. I'm going to keep voting for Keith Ellison because he's fighting for me. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if Keith Ellison is fighting for you, I've got a bridge to sell you, and I've got a $3 bill here as well. I'd like you to look at, but I've got a bridge to sell you and oceanfront property in Arizona as well. Or in the Sahara Desert or wherever else. That's about as realistic as that is. Other thoughts on Keith Ellison that may be more personal coming this way could date all the way back to 2003 when Bush first entered Iraq in the Iraq War. God, it's just too much nonsense noise all the time here. Can't I just enjoy my fire and do my show? Yes. What could possibly be going on? But anyhow, back to where I need to be. 2003, Bush had entered the war. My parents were still working in downtown Minneapolis, and so was I. It was my last year working for a bank before I got laid off, unfortunately, because things weren't going so great at the time. The bank is still standing strong, and I'm still on my 2 feet as well all these years later. But of course, there's going to be a massive protest for the war. Oh, it's just so great. At the end of the day, was it the right thing to do? No. But these people, They were simply there for attention. They were simply there because George W. Bush had an R next to his name. That's the only reason. If it's a Republican, blankety blank, we're against this, and we're going to make a huge scene. We're going to shut everything down and protest until, protest to our heart's desire, because we want attention, and we dang need attention, and we're going to get attention. That's pretty much how I see it at the end of the day. Imagine if Joe Biden had entered Iraq. Would there be a protest? Probably not. Maybe some very small ones, but it wouldn't be much. It wouldn't be nearly as big as that was. So to the point, just to simply, out of frustration, be like, just go away, you guys are annoying. I held up the Star Tribune that said the word war very large, just to kind of say, enough of you guys, like, be quiet. We don't need this. We don't need your advice, regardless if we're for the war or not. That was basically what I was doing from the window of my parents' salon, which is the second floor. And a certain man's eyes met mine, of all people. A certain individual who just had, like, I want to start, I'm a rabble rouser, and I would like to intimidate people into my point of view no matter what. Much younger version of this person, because it was 23 years ago, looked me right in the eye and started saying, "Hey, walk over this, to those, to other people. Let's look at this guy. We're gonna walk over to show him we outnumber him, and your point of view is the minority. We're right and you're wrong." Just kind of an arrogance combined with a look of like, I don't know, a look of like he wanted trouble. That man was Keith Ellison. I was eye to eye with Keith Ellison. And at the time, I didn't know who he was. But years later, I know who it is now. It was Keith Ellison. A much younger version, because it's 23 years ago. It was him. And I'm like, oh my. When it finally dawned on me, that's who it was. Out there, walking with the protest. A rabble rouser from day one. So, and that's why he's been called that from day one. An activist, a rabble rouser, an angry individual who wants nothing but trouble and wants to start a fight. And that's your Attorney General here in the state of Minnesota. Yeah, that's your Attorney General here in the state of Minnesota. And that's why we can do better. Minnesota, we can absolutely do better than Keith Ellison as our Attorney General. We can do better than Keith Ellison as anything in any office of any kind, be it a senator, a House representative of any kind. I'll never forget the look in his eyes as Trump was doing State of the Address back in his first term, and it was a look of hatred. It was a look of like violence, and he just kept, beating his fingers together as he's looking at Trump like, we're gonna fight you, and it was pure hatred the whole time, and it's despicable. It's un-American. It is. This is a man that I want no part of in any form. I don't want him running a Dairy Queen. I don't want him running anything. I don't want him near me, and I don't want him in the state, frankly. Not if he's going to have an attitude like that. So, Keith Ellison, get the hell out of Minnesota, is what I would like to say. Just get out. Vote against Keith Ellison. That's what I would say to anybody in this state that has a vote. If you really think he's for you, you don't understand anything when you consider he, in the name of all of this, talking about fighting for Minnesotans who are being ripped off and such. Do you realize what you've done? You have put everything on hold. You are not helping anybody when you're butting in to other people's business and putting us all on hold. Think about what he did during 2020. Butt into people's business and put their business on hold. And a lot of people went out of business thanks to him. Thanks to him and Governor Tim Walz, who I am ashamed to call my governor. I can't stand him, and I don't know why he ever could be elected once, much less twice, to be governor of Minnesota. And what they did was shut down business after business after business. But of course, liquor stores are open. Yeah, because you want the liquor, dang it. Churches, you can't go to church because going into church, you're going to spread COVID and kill grandma or grandpa or anybody else. That's at the end of the day, it was all about power. what was it? Tim Walz's wife said she loved the smell of burning tires or whatever it was, as the police precinct was burning down to the ground. Absolutely despicable. Whoa, just like this. The wood was being arranged kind of automatically here. So that was funky, but luckily it's still intact and not injuring me myself or anyone else. Okay. I'm Tim Wall. I'm a knucklehead. Yeah, you are a knucklehead, Tim. More than you could ever imagine, Mr. Timmy. Oh, Lord, look what I just did. So I pretty much put it out, but I think the wind's going to bring it back. Apologize if the wind is loud and annoying, but that's kind of how it goes with the territory this time of year. Spring is often quite windy in Minnesota. The great state of Minnesota. Yes, it is windy in Minnesota quite often. But this, we can do better, Minnesota. We can absolutely do better at the governor spot. We can do better in so many places. And I think people need to focus on making the state better. We can do better, Minnesota. Freedom of thought campaign, we could call it. It's a podcast campaign. I'm not running for anything at the moment. I wish I could. Maybe someday, but not sure if, not sure. But I think we can do better. Let's support people that are willing to run for positions, that are funded, people that are, that they do have the backing by the Republican Party of Minnesota, or even an independent that might have the right views. But at the end of the day, it's probably better off voting Republican in the state of Minnesota in terms of like chances of winning the vote and being able to take over the position that is so needed, be it Attorney General, the governor, senators, representatives, city council. It's needed so badly. We can do so much better here. We don't have to be Cobalt Blue all the time. Suburb after suburb, Cobalt Blue. Governor, Cobalt Blue. Attorney General, Cobalt Blue. We can do so much better. City council, all Democrats. Mayor of Minneapolis, Democrat versus Democrat. Mayor of St. Paul, Democrat versus Democrat. Mayor of Golden Valley, Minnesota, Democrat versus Democrat. That's pretty much all it is. So even though they say nonpartisan, which is complete crap, they are on the Black Lives Matter or whatever. They're on. It's all it is. And do Black Lives Matter? Yes, but the group doesn't represent anything but themselves. The group was all about themselves, just like a Keith Ellison, basically looking for power and to manipulate the public into their means and into their needs, their self-centered, evil needs. I'll wrap things up with that. We can do better, Minnesota. And Keith Ellison has got to go. So, were there any comments elsewhere? Well, we'll check the Facebook page. Not the Facebook, but you could eventually go there. We're on Instagram for the moment. Freedom_of_thought1776. Don't you just love when things take forever to load? I don't. Oh, yeah, and I posted this last week from a restaurant in downtown Minneapolis. Basically, what is it by? Kind of like Nicollet and such. Nice Vietnamese restaurant. But people over the course of time decided to put graffiti in the men's room. I'm not sure why they got to do this, but it was everywhere. But it's not that graffiti, as annoying as the graffiti is and how disrespectful it is to the people's property there. I mean, disrespectful, very. But look what was written. Kill cops in 2 different areas. Think about that. Is that okay? Like, why is that okay? People like this should be put away, man. But should be locked up. But unfortunately, it's not like you could know who it was at the time. But the whole point is this is pretty much what we're up against here in Minnesota. We can do better. We can absolutely do better than this. In so many ways, we can do better. I mean, don't tell me we can't. Oh, sorry, I'm reaching for something, and I'm not reaching for the ceiling. Okay, one last log. But yeah, kill cops. Unfortunately, no comments. I'm sure a number of people saw it. Or not. Getting the spinning wheel here. No, not too many. Unfortunately, yep. This page needs a little love, unfortunately. And the last episode was about the tariffs and for people to stop panic selling. Yeah, stop panic selling. Doggone it. A good time to buy, of course. As when people do panic sell, that's the one good thing about it. You can buy because, heck, there's no way these prices are. there's no way these companies are at their valuable price at the moment. yeah, they might drop a little more. But yeah, jump in at some point. As people are panicking, it's time to buy. And that has constantly been thrown out there for many, many years by stock trading experts. No comments, just a like. But appreciate that. Unfortunately, appreciate that at the very least. Doggone it. Let's get to the Facebook page. Yep, facebook.com/freedom of thought 1776, and the Twitter account is, or X or whatever, freedom of thou 76. So it's just, yeah, it is what it is, because either you can't fit or it's been taken, that kind of nonsense. I posted the kill cops there, and yep, no response, unfortunately. Looks like there's no comments at the moment, but hope Mark Carlson's out there. Hope Gerald String, you're out there as well. Love you to death. You guys are the salt of the earth. I'll keep saying that. You're amazing, amazing people. Lee Hepner from Canada, I love you. I've heard from you before. I'd like to hear from more of you out there. I know you're out there. This isn't the most listened to show that I do, unfortunately, because not everybody wants to get into politics, but sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to talk politics, especially in this state. We got to fight, man. We got to fight. And not like John McCain. Fight. Yeah, when he was basically a Democrat, basically. He basically was. Fight my ass. John McCain, give me a break. Fight for the deep state. That's about it. It's about what John McCain was, as far as I'm concerned. Not a fan at all. I remember thinking, like, yeah, I voted for him because it wasn't Obama. That's about it. But that's pathetic, That's pathetic. That's the best we can do is John stinking McCain. And then Romney was maybe slightly better, but basically the same thing, cut from the same cloth. And then finally in 2016, Ronald Reagan with a little bit extra, a little bit angrier version of Ronald Reagan, I guess, or a little bit more combative. Maybe not angry, but that New York personality is different than that more laid-back California personality. But Ronald was also a fighter, just not as, maybe not as New York-y tough as Donald J. Trump at the end of the day. So, but God bless Ronald Reagan, and God rest his soul. Yep, God save Ronald Reagan. Yep, bless him so much. With that said, I believe that's about it, though. Apologize if the wind is annoying. Is annoying if it's loud. I hope it's not irritating audio quality here for this show. But circumstances beyond my control, I pretty much had to be outside. And at the same time, being outside is wonderful on a day like this, and finally getting the first fire of the year. So, and I deeply enjoy doing these fire pit episodes. Done a few others like this where it was by the fire pit when it did involve a little bit of frustrating politics going on. Like it was in my head today, all that Henry Lake nonsense years ago on Twitter with Julius Collins, when all I did was respond to, these are basically the same type. They're just like Keith Ellison, but have a different, it's like a Keith Ellison personality without having the office, basically. Where, what was it they're calling Trump a criminal, whatever, Julius Collins, and all I said was I'd venture to believe that, because this is 2021, by the way, I'd venture to believe it's the current president. And then Julius Collins responded with, would ya? And he basically said, well, I'll tell you, you're full of S, you're full of shit, basically is what he told me. Pardon my French. And then Henry Lake jumps in and says, bro, go ahead and block him. I saw this guy on Facebook basically like a year ago, and he's a MAGA cult member. It's like, wow, unbelievable. So they blocked me without even a response for simply saying, I'd venture to say it's the current president. Is that enough to get pissed off and block somebody and curse at them? Again, that tells you who we're up against. Who's got the right attitude, and who is just, A, looking for a fight, and B, shutting down anybody that dares to have a different opinion right on the spot without even like having a tiny hint of a conversation. No civility whatsoever. That's uncivilized to act like that. I'm sorry. It has nothing to do with anybody's race or anything. It just has to do with it's an uncivilized way to discuss politics, to just act like that. So, I don't know. To just curse at somebody for simply saying, I disagree. Well, sorry. With that said, I guess we'll end with that. We can do better in Minnesota. Yeah. Okay, so including the flag, yes, which is going to be part of the logo for this series. It's the old Minnesota State logo. With that said, thank you so much. And if you could put a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for this show. If you could also please tell your friends, share the show, get it out there a bit. This show needs a little love right now. It's definitely been struggling a little bit, and of course I think a few people may have left for Mysterious Adventures, understandably, because the topics on that show are extremely interesting, and I'm so proud of that show and how it's off to a pretty nice start. Surprisingly, it's doing pretty good. It's not like tearing up the charts or anything, but it's showing very positive indicators for the future, basically. And if you happen to be a listener to both, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Some of you that are. So with that said, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.